I am going to be explaining hidden workforce industries to y'all. Today, we are going to be speaking in depthly about cloud computing and cloud infrastructure. Now, disclaimer, I have hired tons of engineers that work within the cloud space, specifically the AWS Azure space. So, from a recruiting and talent acquisition pipeline, this is kind of my bread and butter. But as always, if I'm looking down, is because I have my notes on my phone and I want to clearly articulate these things to you. So, cloud computing and infrastructure is the silent engine behind every AI system, fintech product, and really just the internet as a whole and digital platform as a whole. This sector is going to cover the architecture, data centers, networking, and the backend systems that allow companies to store information and store data. I want to put a pin in this for a second. I remember I was in the south of France about 2 years ago at this point, and I attended a session by the CMO of Delta at the time, and he was speaking in great detail on like clean data and what that looks like. So if you're interested in cloud computing, one other intersection that I would encourage you to deeply explore is clean data and also clean data storage. Now, we're speaking about where this industry of cloud computing merges at is going to be cloud engineering. Again, like I said, so AWS, Azure, if you're working specifically within Google Cloud, but that is really specific to Google and working at Google. And also GCP, that's Google Cloud, right? And so also thinking about the infrastructures and DevOps. So again, how are we automating? How are we scaling? What are the pipelines that are needed? But also, how are those pipelines sustainable? Again, think about what happened 2 days ago with Cloudflare completely like shutting down the internet for a couple hours. That is going to be cloud storage, and like, how do you maintain this? That is going to be a problem when we're thinking about how AI is revolutionizing how we interact with the work, how we interact with just life in general. Who is maintaining those systems? And also when we're thinking about AI infrastructure and how is computing being distributed, not only locally, because that is a sector of its own, nationally, that's another sector of its own, and internationally. And so when we're thinking about the roles that make $100,000 or more, I'm going to list them off for you. The first one is going to be a cloud engineer. You're going to need to be well versed in either AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, or you can be well versed in all three, but all these things take really time to know, especially because they operate on different back-end softwares. And so Microsoft may use Java while someone else uses Python. And so those two coding languages are different. So you have to like really stick to one to master. And then after you have that mastery, then learn the next. That is my recruiter advice. You could also think about being a cloud solutions architect. This is typically going to pay anywhere from $150,000 to $210,000+ within like the big corporate space. Now, of course, if you're thinking about startups or working in the private ecosystem, these numbers are going to be inflated a lot more. You could also think about being a site reliability engineer. They typically pay $140,000 to $200,000+, thinking about how you're scaling systems at large. Again, urging you to think about local community, national community, government and federal agencies, because that is another sector. And then lastly, internationally. You could be a DevOps engineer or a machine learning engineer. They typically start out at $130,000 to $150,000. The more senior you are, the more money that you're going to make. A distribution engineer, a data center, or hardware engineer. It's also important when we're speaking about software development or technology as a whole, when we're speaking about the engineering role. Also, don't forget hardware, okay? Like, who is maintaining these literal physical computer chips that is literally powering the world? And then a network engineer. So some of the college pathways that you can consider is not only a bachelor's in these things, but I'm going to urge you to explore your master's and PhD in computer science, information technology, software engineering, networking and systems administration, also a master's in cloud computing with a concentration in machine learning or concentration in artificial intelligence, or getting that master's or PhD in quantum mechanics, because that is also going to be important. Now, certifications, look at AWS and Microsoft Azure, because that's where it's going to be, as well as the CompTIA Cloud Plus. Cisco also has tons of certifications that you can explore, get your feet wet in, but you're really going to need higher education. The reason why I say that is because now most of these universities have partnerships with these big tech companies, or also the fintech or startup companies, and that's where like that internship pipeline is going to be at. Unless you're already a seasoned engineer and you have the network to move and groove, another piece of advice that I could give you is go to different conferences, tech conferences that hyper focus on what is happening within the AI ecosystem and landscape. That is going to be to your best benefit. So you're also getting that in-person networking advice, and you can ask specific questions. Last piece of advice from a former recruiter, former technical recruiter, former senior technical recruiter that worked in big tech, is that I need you to have like 3 specific questions that you are going to ask people that is going to really give you an in-depth vantage point on what you need to know, okay? A lot of times people try to do the handshaking route, but like you didn't leave with anything substantial. What are 3 substantial questions that you can ask via email, cold email professors, experts within the space, or as you're going to these conferences, like thinking about how you can network within those spaces?